Hello and good morning. You're tuned into Market Cafe. I'm Ankita Saxena, and the next half an hour we'll take you through all that transpired on the global front, the geopolitics, and of course the cues you need to watch out for before the start of the street. Let's get going then with the show, and let's take stock of how the Wall Street traded yesterday. Well, the Wall Street saw a sea of green coming in. Now remember, there are two things that happened. Firstly, the tensions escalated, as far as US-Iran war is concerned, because the UAE was attacked by Iran via drones, and on the back of that, we did see that escalation coming in. However, Donald Trump said that they were still on track for the peace talks, and a very positive outcome is possible. And also on the back of that, he stopped his freedom movement, where he was, relieving those ships from the Strait of Hormuz on the back of the fact that the peace talks are progressing very well. And in fact, Peter Hegseth also came out and said that the ceasefire still holds true for both US and Iran. And on the back of that, there was a positive sentiment, and on the back of that, we did see Wall Street that did very well yesterday. In fact, we also saw a slew of earnings that came out, and that has been a big positive for the Wall Street. In fact, 85% of S&P 500 companies have already reported their numbers that have beaten the street expectations. So on the back of that, S&P 500 and Nasdaq both have been hitting all record highs. In fact, yesterday also they hit an intraday high and closing highs. They closed, S&P 500 shut shop 0.8%, and Nasdaq Composite was trading over 1.5%. Dow Jones Industrial Average also did very well. In fact, that was up 356.7% gain coming in on Dow Jones as well. We had Chipmaker Advanced Micro Devices, or ADM, that popped 16% after the company issued a very rosy guidance for the second quarter, calling for about $11.2 billion in revenue. So the companies that have been reporting the numbers have been doing pretty well. In fact, all the chip makers across the world, whether it is a Samsung or an SK Hynix, in Asia, they have also been doing very well. So on the back of that, we did see Wall Street shape up very well. So that is how the US markets fared yesterday. We also have commodities that saw a bit of a cooling. Now remember, oil had jumped up 4% on Monday, but that saw a bit of a cooling coming in yesterday, after Donald Trump said that the ceasefire still persists and the peace talks are on track. So on the back of that, we did see Brent crude that cooled off more than 1.5%. It's still sitting over $105 per barrel, but we did see the oil prices come off. In fact, WTI is still sitting at $100 per barrel, but we saw it cool off for more than 1.5% on the back of the pause on the Iran-US offense. So that's how the commodity market shaped up, and Asian handover also looks very positive. The implied start to Nifty shows a gap-up start of almost 200 points. We also have the Asian markets that have been doing very well. In fact, look at South Korea's Kospi. That has been hitting a record high. That topped 7,000 to hit a new high as we see the de-escalation happening. Nikkei is trading up 0.3%. Hang Seng is up almost 0.3%. Shanghai trading up 0.8%. S&P ASX 200 is up 1%. And of course, like I mentioned, it's the chip makers all across the globe that have been buoying the sentiments. And Samsung, SK Hynix, these have been doing very well. And on the back of that, we have Kospi that has been hitting record high. Nifty is also indicating a gap up start of almost 200 points in the trading session. But let's see if it really holds on to those gains come second half.